Please stay tuned. The webcast will begin shortly. Please stay tuned. The webcast will begin shortly. Please stay tuned. The webcast will begin shortly. Please stay tuned. The webcast will begin shortly.
Hi, Chair, we're live.
Welcome, everyone. Commissioners, I understand we have quorum, so I will officially call our meeting to order. And we're going to start our meeting today with the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on now to declaration of interest. Commissioners, do any of you wish to declare a conflict of interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. The next item is our minutes from June 16th, 2021. Doesn't seem like that long ago. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes? Commissioner Lai has put up her hand. All those in favor by show of hands, that carries. Okay, so as usual, I want to remind everybody it's an open meeting. And as we go through the agenda today, we'll require once again for you to email your question and speaking request to the clerk, as we have in the past. And it's again 5 minutes to speak for both of those. If you want to submit a motion, please email your motion to the email address that you're very aware of. And if you have technical issues, please let us know as soon as possible so we can help troubleshoot those issues. So we'll move now to the order paper and review that. So number one would be the CEO report. So I'll hold that in my name for the meeting. As we move into the meeting, Acad, our report from Acad in the minutes. So I will hold that in my name as well. Making Summerhill, Rosedale, and Castle Frank stations accessible. We've got a deputation on that issue, so I'll hold that in my name. High Park Station, easier access phase 3, property acquisitions. Would anybody like to move that? I'm happy to move that. I will move that. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Old Mill Station, easier access phase 3, property acquisitions. Would someone like to move that at this time? Okay, I see Commissioner Jadio. He's moving that. Thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item 6, I'll hold in my name. That is a presentation on Osgood. And that's a reflection of our last meeting, moving forward to this meeting. So I'll hold that for a staff presentation. Embracing diversity, new TTC Fair Inspector and Special Constable Complaints Office, and 2020 annual report. There's a staff presentation on that, so I'll hold that. Unless, does no one want to hold that? That one? You want to hold that, Commissioner Lai? Okay, so that's good. I just wanted to make sure because I'm going to put it in your name, okay? Commissioner Lai, that item 7. Item 8, contract award for SAP time and attendance project. Okay, I'm going to hold that one because it's a quick item. I just have a couple quick motions on that, which I think you'll like, and to thank staff. Item 9, procurement authorization for TTC all risk property insurance renewal. Would anybody like to move that as we, okay, Commissioner Lai is firing off on all cylinders here. Okay, so we are moving that. All in favor? That carries. Next item is item 10, supply of Microsoft Cloud subscriptions. Would anybody like to move that item? Okay, the Vice Chair is moving it. Thank you. All in favor? That carries. Next item is item 11, facility renewal design services. Anybody want to move that? Unless you want to hold it. Okay, Commissioner Osborne is moving that. Thank you, Commissioner. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Consult services, engineering support, and design standards. Anybody want to hold that or move that or?
Let's move that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Jagdeo. That's 12. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. And then number 13, I believe our last item is security guard services and access control for TTC properties purchase order amendment authorization. Anybody want to move that or hold it? I can't see everybody in this first frame, so. Oh, I moved and I see Commissioner McKelvey on the second page. There she is with her hand up. Thank you.
If you move to the second page and then move back, it usually moves the people whose screen is on.
Okay, well, see, you're a young whippersnapper. You know all these things. Thank you. There you are. So Commissioner McKelvey has moved 13. Security guard services, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. That was very efficient. So we will now move to our first item, which is this, unless Chris Ann's going to tell me otherwise, we're going to move to the CEO report, correct? Okay, nod from the boss. So we're moving on to Rick Leary, our CEO.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. I want to welcome back our YouTube viewers and those participants in today's virtual meeting. So thank you. Commissioners, it's my pleasure to let you know that the TTC has kicked off its 100th anniversary celebration with archival exhibits at select stations across the system. Riders of all ages are really going to get a kick out of viewing these wonderful photos of the TTC over the past century. The collection was put together with the assistance of Toronto Archives, so I just want to make sure I say thank you to the archive staff for their collaboration on this excellent collection. Our customers are going to see these displays at the following stations. I'm going to list them out for you. At Bay, Don Mills, DuPont, Finch, Kennedy, Kipling, Main Street, Spadina, St. Clair West, Queen, Union, and Vaughan Metropolitan Center. The TTC officially marks 100 years in service on September 1st, and I'd let you know that we are planning on celebrating this milestone with a number of activities throughout the year. I'm going to ask you to stay tuned because the Chair and I will be providing more information to everybody in the coming weeks. Now, over the past few weeks, I've been going out to different work locations throughout the Commission. I always say that our employees are our lifeblood of the TTC, and making sure that I can connect directly with them is something I've always found to be important to me. I've been doing these sites visits for the last 7 years that I've been within this organization, and I think they're an invaluable way of staying in touch with frontline workers. This month, I began visiting Hillcrest Complex, where I walked through the Transit Control Center, the Operations Training Center, as well as Streetcar Way, beautiful new building, and the employees there are thrilled that they have that building. I also stopped at Harvey's shop to see some of the really specialized employees that make in-house solutions happen here at the TTC. They're real versatile. And you may recall that at the beginning of the pandemic, they were able to pivot and produce masks for our entire organization. Last week, I was also had the ability to be at Leslie Barnes to thank our employees down there for the hard work during the pandemic. It was really, I really enjoyed talking with the frontline maintenance staff, and they were thrilled to hear about the announcement for 60 new streetcars for our streetcar network. So they were thrilled on that. I tell you, they were also thrilled because, you know, you may not be aware, but we're also working with the Ministry of Labor, the Training and Skills Development, Centennial College, and Metrolinx to create our first light rail streetcar apprenticeship program, which includes a curriculum to go along with it. So they're real excited to see about the investment in public transit for the city and the investment and commitment to them as a group that work on these vehicles and doing a great job day in and day out. Finally, I also had the opportunity to visit Lake Shore to thank our Wheel-Trans operators for all they did during the pandemic or continue to do during the pandemic. You know, while I was there, I had a chance to talk to the maintenance staff again and get a tour of our new 7-meter ProMaster vehicle. Let you know that we intend to have 20 of these vehicles in service later on this year, with a total of 110 by the end of 2022. And the team continues to work very closely with Acad on this, and as it evolves and we work on this vehicle, you know, to make sure that we incorporated real-time information or feedback from Wheel-Trans customers. The pilot vehicle is actually put into service right before we place the order. You know, and I'm excited to tell you that from hearing from the maintenance staff and the operators down there, they're excited about this, and everyone's really excited to get these out on the road. So as always, I just want to give a big thank you to Acad and a shout out to Acad for all their input and support and making sure that our services is truly accessible. As I'll be doing more of these visits in the coming weeks and months as well, as I enjoy getting out there to hear what the employees have to say and how we engage, and to have them talk about what's important to them and what matters they have while they're out in our system. Now, as you know, safety is always and must be the foundation of everything we do here at the TTC. And 2 weeks ago, the TTC executive attended a virtual meeting with the overnight staff within subway infrastructure. And these meetings were follow-up meetings to those that took place in person last October. At the time, we heard about safety concerns and committed to working towards resolutions, specifically relating to areas and processes when it came to track and structure, electrical, and our signal teams. Since the October visits, the team has identified 50 action items to improve maintenance practices, procedures, update training practices, and to make investments to bring the facilities up to standard. And I'm happy to let you know we've had some significant success with those 50 action items. To date, 30 of them have been resolved. We have another 9 additional items that are working on future initiatives, and 11 are still ongoing and currently underway, working towards resolution. Now, some of the resolved items for you, they included, you know, increased frequencies of cleaning of the facilities, for instance, better sourcing and distribution of appropriate PPE, and providing additional vehicles, right, to allow the proper transport of employees, recognizing the COVID-19 physical distancing protocols. So we're really moving it along. The executives will continue to work with the frontline staff and make sure that we stay well in tune to their needs and the needs of the organization. As well, just as important for you to know, we do provide updates to our employees through the local management or joint health and safety committee meetings. Now, I'd like to also remind everyone that the TTC is proud once again to be supporting the annual Underground Freedom Train ride to celebrate Emancipation Day on August 1st. The Emancipation Day Freedom Ride is a virtual experience again this year and is scheduled to begin at 10:45 p.m. on Saturday, July 31st. Similar to last year, the event will be live streamed on YouTube, and the TTC is proud to be speaking on behalf of our workforce and to commemorate the important role the Underground Railroad had in Canada's history. Now, honoring Emancipation Day reminds us of how important it is to combat anti-Black racism and to eliminate discrimination in all its forms in our communities as well as in our workforce. So I'd say that stay tuned. We'll have more information on the website as well as adbcc.org for more information. Now, I'm also pleased to tell you that the pop-up vaccination clinics that we've held at various locations are going very well. So far to date, 2,100 employees or workers have received their first dose at these clinics. On June 23rd, we held a clinic at Danforth Division, and a second clinic was held on July 2nd at Mount Dennis Division. These clinics are open to all TTC employees and are providing both first and second shots, or doses, I should say. We'll continue to work with our health providers and try to prepare for additional opportunities for pop-up clinics throughout the summer. Excuse me. We've also been very proud to work to support the City of Toronto's vaccination efforts. On July 27th, to support Toronto Vaccination Day or Vaccine Day, the TTC offered free rides to anyone riding to and from any vaccine clinic or appointment, including clinic workers and volunteers. A record-setting 26,771 people got a vaccination at Scotiabank Arena, an amazing number. And the initial tallies indicate that over 4,000 customers took the TTC to get their shots. So we're very excited to be part of these efforts. And as everybody knows, the vaccinations are an important part of putting this pandemic behind us. And I will say that, we're starting to see light at the end of what we've looked at as a very long tunnel. Already we're seeing ridership increase, albeit slowly. And we know that as the city continues to reopen, that more people will return to the TTC over the summer. In fact, we're starting, you'll see a campaign rollout that welcomes people back to the TTC and highlights things that we are doing to keep customers and employees safe. And of course, we will continue to work with and take the guidance of Dr. Davila and her amazing team at Toronto Public Health as we move forward with our plans. So with that, on that note, I would say, Chair, I just want to wish all the commissioners, employees, and all customers a happy and safe summer. Chair, that concludes my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have questions for you. First, Commissioner Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm just curious as a new commissioner. Your report says that there's about 13% increase for the offenses against employees. I just wanted to understand what constitute offense against an employee.
Andrew Brennan, are you there? Could you take that, please? I see Andrew there, so
Hello, can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Yeah, so when we do those calculations, so it's any assault, so it could be any sort of form of assault. I don't want to go down the list of different things, but any assault towards an employee.
So would verbal abuse be included in that, or just it has to be an assault?
Yeah, so verbal abuse is one of them, and it depends on the nature, but that would be logged as once we do the investigation.
Yeah, I will, if I could, Councilor. It's verbal assaults, threats, spitting, right? As of late, last month, you might recall that I spoke a little bit of having discussions with the city manager as well as the chief of police. And we've seen more police officers on the system now and working to go up to bus operators and Wheel-Trans operators as well, just for that visibility.
So these are from TTC customers, I suppose, right? Yeah, riders? Yeah.
Yes.
And okay, thank you. And the other question is, we've opened up the second step now. So how has the ridership been like? Has it been a substantial increase now? I know that this number will be coming up later, but you've seen an increase in the ridership after step 2?
Josie, you'll take that one for us, please?
Sorry, Councillor, Commissioner, could you please repeat your question?
I'm just saying that after we're opening up step 2 now, and just to, in the last while, has there been increase in ridership?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes. So what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is a closing in the margin between our planned ridership and our existing ridership. So we were projecting to be at about 38% of our normal ridership numbers, and we're actually in about 2% from that. We were as low as about 10% from what we had planned. At one point back in April, we were as close as 1% difference, but it is closing. Yes, it is. And we continue to monitor daily.
My last question would be, Madam Chair, through you. that we had both consultations on the service plan and the Scarborough RT. Has there been a good turnout in those consultations?
I can take that, Mr. CEO.
Yes, if you would, please.
Yes, thanks, Commissioner Lai. We have had a good turnout. Our focus on the consultations have been really to focus in on stakeholders, and the stakeholders have shown up, and we've had great responses and really dynamic conversations where questions are asked and answered. So, we're very pleased with the outcomes, and we're going to be continuing to have more about the SRT once we analyze the results and have more information for them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is our Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually want to follow up on Commissioner Lai's question on the robustness of our consultations. You know, one of the, our key objective is to, of course, get back to the ridership levels that we had before, but also more than that, really encourage more use of transit, lessening of traffic, so that by doing so, we really contribute to the economic development of the city. So I just wanted to get at the robustness of that. How do we ensure that we're listening clearly and carefully, and we really understand the needs of individuals who are on those lines, and what it would take to have them not use their cars? Just expand on that a little bit for us.
I'm happy to answer that question, and I know that the Chief Communications Officer can probably help as well. We actually have a number of tools that we use. We mine information out of our customer relationship management systems. We understand where the complaints are coming from, and that's where we got good information about crowding, concerns about locations during the height of the pandemic. We also have research contract with Forum, who's an Environics kind of company, and we create polls where we're speaking directly to particular users. If an issue has come up, we'll say, well, let's find out more what youth are thinking, and then we'll create a poll to understand what it is that they're thinking, and that informs everything from our communications plans, work that Deb Brown does through marketing campaigns, and also informs our planning decisions on things like SRT.
Okay, and would we also include employers who rely on those, on staff? Would we talk to them to see what, for example, is there a willingness or flexibility around the kind of hours that they allow people to come in? Because a big complaint that I used to hear when I was downtown and managed a firm from staff that were using the system was, well, it's just so busy, and it's I can't get on a train. I can't, and we did actually institute more flexible hours so that people could start at 10, for example, and then stay a little later. So is that a discussion that we would also include
Yes.
in our research? Okay.
Yeah, actually, we have two things going on right now. We're partnering with the City of Toronto in their usual employment survey, which is sort of done on a longer time frame than ours. And we do have a survey out there with employers right now. And we're in ongoing discussions with the Toronto Region Board of Trade, because we're very focused on the office workers and getting them back, because they constitute just over 25% of our ridership.
Great. In fact, I was going to suggest the Board of Trade. So that's terrific. Thank you.
And through the chair, vice chair, we also sit on the Toronto Board of Trade, the Mayor's Committee, and we've been working very closely and sharing advertising space and timing everything that's going out the door for the start of ridership with them, so that it's perfectly synced. So we're very attuned to that, and Scarborough as well. We're part of their group as well.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lalonde is next.
Thank you, Chair. I had two questions. The first was concerning the property insurance that I didn't get in quickly enough on when we were going through the agenda, but it's a general question that I thought perhaps the CFO could answer. Is it the case that all of the city properties are covered by property insurance, or is this something that's unique to the TTC?
So through the chair, all city properties are covered by property insurance. The city holds its own policies for those that they directly control, and each of the agencies, like the TTC, have its own coverage.
Okay, thank you. My other question is for the CEO, and it concerns vaccination. I'm wondering if we have any ability to determine which of our employees have been vaccinated. And I'm thinking particularly of those who are exposed to the general public, like the bus operators and station personnel, that sort of thing. As to whether there's any way that we can ensure that those employees are protected and that they protect the public as well by being vaccinated. And I guess a follow-up to that is, have we considered whether we have the ability or desirability to enforce any kind of policy around vaccination, and whether we've taken any legal advice on that point?
Through the chair, so I'll take a stab at that one. In terms of determining how many of our employees, and including frontline employees, have been vaccinated, we are actually in the process of issuing a survey to our employees to gauge that, to see how many have received their first vaccine and how many intend to receive their second dose. So we do have plans to do that, Commissioner. And in terms of the second question, I mean, in terms of as you know, right now, vaccinations aren't mandatory, but that is something that we will have to look into a little more in terms of the workplace situation and whether mandatory vaccination would need to be considered. But at this point, no decisions have been made.
Thank you. Could I ask just one follow-up? In terms of implementing that survey, do you plan to be able to segregate the results by employees who are exposed to the public?
Yes, we are. That's one of the questions that's part of that. It would indicate whether you're frontline or if you're a back of office employee.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Chair.
Very much. We'll move to Commissioner Carroll and then Commissioner Min Wong.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, my question is about the ridership numbers. We were pretty conservative during budget time. We sort of accounted for the worst case scenario, but I note that with the full stay-at-home order, that we're really coming in, our ridership is slightly under even those numbers. So I'm wondering if that set of numbers, that conversation has started with other orders of government. I know they've indicated that they know they have to help us beyond 2020, but do you have any early intel on whether or not we can count on them, given that we had this long stay-at-home order and these low numbers? We're going to need even more help.
So through the chair, I'll start that answer. So what we had budgeted, if you recall, in the 2021 budget was a movement from our 2020 experience at year end, which was around 32%. And we saw a gradual increase over the four quarters of 2021, leading us up to just about 49%. So we've been tracking, of course, below that. It is closing. As you know, we had a widening and then a closing, and now we're seeing a closing again. So when we've reported to you on our financials, the gap between where we think we're going to be at year end as a variance to our budget at our last meeting had us at about $3.5 million overspent. That's different than the budget gap that still remains overall from the amount of funding that we're getting from the other orders of government for 2021. So that number has been out there. It's a combination of about 130 million, 120 million in total. And so those conversations continue, as I understand, with the city. The question then becomes, what happens for 2022? And so that's the next set of discussions to be had.
Okay, and in a way, this is a conversation, I think this is a question for the CEO, because it gets at policy. If we're continuing to have this conversation about being helped, I'm wondering when is the right time. If you've thought about this at all, we're trying to build our ridership. I've heard in the answers to some of the questions, some of the concentration that's going on there, getting back the office ridership, possibly things like that. But I'm wondering at one point we could maybe look at converting this conversation to help us through COVID to, we've demonstrated during COVID that when we have you as an operating partner, we can run the system. We can do just about anything, so that we come out of this with maybe a conversation that leads to ongoing contributions to operating. Having demonstrated how very much it means to the system, can we more get us through the pandemic into look what happens when you're an operating partner? Isn't that wonderful? Am I dreaming in Technicolor when I say that, or is that conversation something you're already contemplating?
Through you, Chair. Well, I can tell you, Councillor, that I do have those conversations with all levels of government. Sometimes it gets taken a little back because, as you know, everyone's looking for assistance these days. Right now, I've spent a lot of time talking with the city manager about how we're going to get through this year. And then that big gap is we're doing the 2022 budget right now, as you're probably aware, to try to determine where that takes us. So it's a continued discussion. And it's going to have to, I have to leave it at that for right now. It's not shrugged off in a sense, but there's so many needs right now. It's one of the conversations we're having.
Okay, and last question, Madam Chair. I just want to know the ridership growth strategy that we adopted before times, before COVID, and we were working on it a little bit. Is there a feeling that maybe we should bring that forward as a separate report to sort of check it against the kinds of things we know we need to do to bring back ridership after the pandemic? Are there things in the ridership growth strategy that if we go aggressively on them, we know that they could really serve us to grow ridership back? Things we've already contemplated and costed out?
Through you, Chair, before Kathleen answers, if I could. So one of the real strategies we're having right now is with the regional integration of transit services with our regional partners, right? Talking about the seamlessness of opportunity to take anybody's vehicle in the city of Toronto. There'll be a report coming to the board in September on that, regarding how we can work with them to make it easier for whether it's our regional customers or city customers to take any service within the city of Toronto. So we're looking at that. Kathleen, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the other initiatives because you're out there talking on the annual service planning on what the customers are desiring.
Well, excuse me, yeah, we have the service plan out right now and the board will be seeing that, but we can, when we report on that, we can report in the context of other ridership incentives. Also just wanted to say with the fare policy discussions ongoing right now, we've kind of reset some of our modeling, some of the effort we'd asked our consultant to work on to really focus on what we're calling ridership reacquisition and then of course ridership growth. So your question has made me realize that it will probably be helpful for us to bring the service plan forward in the context of some of those other things so that the board will have that comprehensive understanding.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Menon-Wong.
Thanks. First question, with regard to the ridership, do we know, I'm interested to know why the numbers are so low, and do we know who's driving and who's just staying home and working from home? I mean, I think that's a fundamental question, right? It's a business question. We're a business, right?
So, yeah, I can start and then maybe Kathleen can augment. So in terms of our tracking of our ridership revenue, right, those that are paying customers, we have the Presto data, and what we're seeing, of course, is a fair amount of activity on our bus system, as you can imagine, that it's in the outer areas. Clearly, the least amount of use is down in our streetcar mode, which is in the downtown area. So that's the area that we're not seeing as much the least amount of activity, roughly about 25% of paying rides are in that area. So,
you know what, Josie, I mean, I'm sure you've got all that data, but it misses completely the mark of the question that I'm asking. Is like, we have to noodle and get behind why the ridership numbers are down, and part of it's because some people are staying home, and part of it's because people are driving in. I mean, I think that's a pretty fundamental question to trying to figure out how we get our ridership numbers. What are people doing? Do we know that? And I don't think you can get that from just, person who comes with the Presto card. We got to know who owns it and what they're doing.
of course.
Yep. If I may, Deputy Mayor, I would just say that this is what we're out in the field right now with our surveys. We're asking people, we're asking customers, we're asking employers, and we're synthesizing that information. We did some scenario planning, which I think we presented to you in the past, and we're always tweaking that to understand. And then that's where our marketing and our service efforts will go when we find out what it is that people need from us in terms of travel. And of course, the city and the mayor has his task force, as Natalie mentioned as well. So happy to hear if there's something that you think we're missing.
Well, I don't know what, I mean, the marketing stuff, I'm kind of a little flummoxed. I mean, it's commonly accepted that research drives strategy and strategy drives tactics. And I can't understand, you can't do your marketing, which is a tactic, until you do your research. And I don't think you've done that yet, have you?
Well, as I said, we have surveys out in the field right now with employers. It'll be done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's one thing. But like, have you ever, first of all, have you ever asked people, like, what are they doing? Why aren't they taking transit? Like, are you staying at home? Are you driving? Are you scared to get on the TTC? If you've got to get on, I mean, I'm not a pollster, but I know one or two things, but we got to get underneath that. Right?
So,
and understand why before you're going to solve the problem. And
yes.
Sorry, Kathleen, just one other thing.
That's okay.
And the other thing is, surveys aren't going to give you all that answers. Are you doing focus groups?
We aren't doing focus groups, but it's certainly something we can add to it. We are, as I said, using the CRM. We're using complaints that we receive, the surveys, all the information that we're getting from the face-to-face contacts we're having through consultations on SRT and the service plan. I like the idea of focus groups. And as I said, the employer survey will be coming in shortly, so we'll know what employers are thinking. We're also hearing through complaints that there is a concern about some of the disorder that people are finding on the subway in particular. So we have heard people say, it'll be a long time before I get on the subway again. And that came out actually in response to some of the discussions around our fare policy.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to the City of Vancouver, to TransLink, I'm talking to a number of different agencies to see what they're doing about when our stations are not as crowded as usual, how do we handle the fact that there are uses going on there that sometimes keep customers away?
Yeah, focus groups answer the question why. Surveys don't do that. The other thing is, are you going to the groups that we need to grow? I mean, if we look at ourselves as a business, like the people that aren't taking it, the first people that should be taking it, that form part of our revenue stream, the biggest portion of our revenue stream, we should be going to those groups and finding out what's holding them back from taking transit. Are we doing that?
Well, I'll take that as a suggestion and make sure that we are doing that, Deputy Mayor. And I also just want to say that we are focusing also in the longer term on creating that transit habit by going into the schools and having good conversations with young people about how they can take transit, and transit can make their lives better. And so that's a program that we're beginning to work on right now for this fall.
My understanding is that, people that are on, in the higher needs or lower income area are more predisposed toward taking transit. If we were to want to take a bigger chunk back faster, that we should be focusing in on those groups, because that they're, you fish where the fish are. And if those are the people that would make up a larger portion of the business and more revenue, that we should be understanding what it is that's holding them back from taking transit. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And one of the barriers is actually the cost. And I'm meeting on July 16th with Denise Andrea Campbell and her team to talk about the Fare Pass. And I know that there's a funding gap of $25 million for that. And so we're trying to talk creatively about how fare policy, when it comes forward, can address the financial barrier that those customers have.
I'm not sure that we have the room to manipulate the Fare Pass per se, but maybe you could ask people, what are the other things that would encourage you to get back on transit? Because it's not just one answer, right? Because
Absolutely.
They were taking transit before the pandemic and they were absorbing the cost. No?
I guess so. I think those are the essential workers. Often they're the people who didn't have a choice not to travel. And on our buses, that's where those customers are often using them, and that's where we still have our highest ridership. It's on the other services, streetcar and subway, that are they're
So
low
this is
right
my
now.
final question.
Oh, yes, it is.
Thanks, Jay, for being. I promise not to ask a lot of questions on anything else.
You can't do that.
Okay, well, then I don't promise. My question is, like, I know you're doing the surveys and stuff. I mean, I'm really frustrated because I see far too often in the city the word consultation used as a box checking exercise, where they say they're doing consultations and they go to the usual suspects and special interest groups, and they don't get out to the people. So, for example, in the rooming house thing, I did a survey of 500 people in my ward. 80% had no idea that we were talking about that there was a consultation with rooming houses. How do you get past the special interest groups and usual suspects that come to City Hall and get to the real people who have, who take transit every day?
I think we can do some better work on that, but in the old days, we used to put a newspaper ad in. We used to ask counselors to put it in their newsletters, and we used to call people to come to places. And so I think we can do a better job of the kind of thing you're doing and just surveying broadly the whole community. So I'll just have to take that good insight.
Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome. So we're moving to speakers now. Commissioner Carroll is first.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. My questions, if you think about it, are really similar to some of the questions that Commissioner Min Wong was just asking, and I support this idea of really starting to target certain demographics and actually have a focus group discussion. And it's part of the reason that I was sort of trying to wrap together. We need other orders of government to know that we're dealing with something different now, and we may need their help. We also need to look at our ridership growth strategy and see if it does what we need it to do. If we look back years ago, the first ridership growth strategy looked at how do we get people in the suburbs to make a mode change. And we've come to a whole different place now. If you then look at our customer boardings page, what do we see on social media? A whole bunch of people in those low income areas saying, why is my bus so crowded? I'm worried about getting COVID. The bus system is filling back up. I would love it if the customer boarding page showed me a random sample of, say, 2018, what we had in terms of boardings. Because what it looks like to me is that the real problem now is actually downtown. And if you've talked to people who live down there, we know it is. What happens is you have the experience of saving money when you're trying to save yourself from the infection, and now you're addicted to saving money. And so we have a whole bunch of people downtown that we could count on to board a streetcar and go 3 or 4 stops that are now just saying, I'm going to walk, or I bought a bike, or I'm going to Uber. Why would I get on that streetcar and catch COVID? Or later on, it will be, why would I get on that crowded streetcar? And so now, where we're losing ridership, it looks like, if you look at the modes, it looks like we're losing the short trippers, the people who are already in the core and have lots of options to get where they're going, which means our ridership growth strategy and our 5-year fare strategy may need to look at that. We really must compete with Uber now. But there are ways to do that that are positive. We don't have to have a fight and shut them down or anything, but we need to drive decisions. So is it, you know, I've been toying with the idea of an app called your Transpo Tally. What if we could tether your TTC app and your Uber app to something that tallies how much you're spending on transportation per month? And by the middle of the month, you're thinking, as you've got somewhere to go, I've already used Uber too much. I've spent more than half my budget, and it's the 15th of the month. I'm getting on the TTC. And we start to train people back to, you know, yeah, this is the better way. How much do you want to spend on transportation in a month? Because they've gotten very used to the convenience of just using a ride share and maybe using it far too much. I'm not saying ban ride share, but can we have a greater share of people's transportation trips in the month? How do we pull those back in? And I think if we start doing focus groups, we'll find we got a bunch of crowded buses and an empty streetcar and an empty line one at lots of times a day. And that's the polar opposite of what used to be the case. And so what does the ridership growth need to look like? I submit that goes beyond just looking at the numbers in the CEO's report. I submit that in conjunction with the 5-year review that Ms. Llewellyn-Thomas is doing, we need to look at what is our after times ridership growth strategy, because it's actually going to need to attract an entirely different rider than we thought we needed to attract before. And you're going to have to retrain them that we can save them a lot of money and get them where they need to go. And so I know I can't move a motion on the CEO report, but I'd be happy to work with other commissioners on a motion, or I see Kathleen nodding, that if the undertaking is that this sort of thinking is going to be rolled into our fare strategy review, then it's just around the corner that we're going to get that thinking back to us in a distinct report. I hope that's the case.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move to Commissioner Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, first of all, I'd like to thank the CEO for such a comprehensive report. There's so much reading to read, and I just can't keep track of all of them, but I just wanted to pick up on one that about the consultation. And I'm very happy to see that the TTC is going out for consultation and robust consultation. I think I witnessed it firsthand myself because I helped promote some of them on social media, and I hosted a town hall. And I just wanted to thank again, Kathleen. I just cannot thank you enough, and your team, Angela, and all this team, TTC staff, senior staff actually, that come out to reach out to people. I was invited to a couple of other town halls as a commissioner, and I was very happy and glad that we had that conversation. And I actually learned a lot from those conversations, and I actually think that there's a lot of good input in those conversations. And reaching out is very important. It's all about, it's all about listening. And I heard a couple of new ideas, about how we can help TTCs, how TTC can help navigate in those changing points, like stations like Blue and Young and all those things, those are very, very good input. And the other one was about the community bus. I never know of, the community bus, but I think those are very good ideas that you come out if you go able to listen to people. So I just wanted to commend TTC staff and under your leadership, Rick, you've been doing robust consultations, but I think it's never enough. So we need to do more, and especially maybe through other agencies. I think there's a lot of people, they have a lot of interest in the agencies hosting the events, and especially in agencies that serve the vulnerable community people. I was at the Center of Immigration and Community Service, CICS, and they serve new immigrants, new Canadians, and they serve, marginalized people like Chinese-speaking people. So I actually conducted some of them in Mandarin, which is very important. I think we should reach out as much as we can and do robust consultation because at the end of the day, we're supposed to be listening. So we should actually put all those things in place. So I just wanted to commend Rick, you're doing a good job with your staff, your senior staff team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers on this item? I'm going to say a couple words. Okay, Commissioner Minnan-Wong, you're up.
Thanks. I'll just speak briefly, and I think we're all speaking about the plan, the ridership plan, and I can't emphasize enough that we've got to know who's not taking transit and who we can get back, and I don't think we know that yet. I think, and this is to Commissioner Carroll's point, where did they travel? I think she raised a great point when she talked about people aren't going down. People are making a lot of shorter trips. But we also, I'm actually using research in my community, and one of the surprising stats that I had to review was people aren't going downtown as much as we think they are. They're making shorter trips, and so how can we appeal and get more ridership? And then the other fundamental question is, why aren't they taking transit, and what is it going to take to get people back? A lot of them will say, I want a free transit. Well, of course, more people would take it, but we can't do that. I think Josie told us that if we were to swallow that cost, that would mean property taxes would go up over $1,000 per household. We have to go and ask, what else, right? If we put better, there is a discussion going on, and this is not just our problem, it's all across North America, is what can we do other than, reducing fares? That's not a practical arrangement. A lot of people say that better service would attract more people onto transit. We have to look at things like that. So, and until we do that research, we can't do anything else. And for next year, that research is so critical because that will determine how much money we get at the fare box, which will determine a whole lot of other things. So I think this was a great discussion, and I hope our staff will kind of take these comments and seriously, because I think there's a unanimity or agreement on the board on this one. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll just say a few words, and I think there's been some great comments and questions on this item. And I would just like to share with you that the communications and marketing team at the TTC have been for months working on a return campaign, a recovery effort. And there will be an exhaustive campaign rolled out. In fact, 2 campaigns, and one will be promoting safety, because people need to feel safe on the system. They did before, they really do now. And that will be really embedded into the campaign and welcoming people back to the TTC, is that it will be a safe ride. Secondly, it will get you where you want to go. And hopefully there'll be good news. There's good news today. The AGO has announced their reopening July 21st. So very excited to hear about that, because amazing exhibitions are coming our way. And this will be, hopefully there'll be more of these announcements like the AGO. And so the TTC has developed a campaign to not just, really help riders get back to the system, but also encourage them to go to these destinations, whether it's the Distilleries District or the museums, Lawrence Market, the zoo, the Science Center. We want to help them too, and partner with those organizations and help promote those organizations. Because as we know, all those destinations, all those amazing cultural organizations are really struggling. Really had a rough road throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a way, it's really a win-win, because we're encouraging people to take the TTC to these wonderful destinations that we all need to rally around and support, just like we do retail and small business. So you'll be seeing that, and that will be rolling out kind of in 2 phases sequentially. And I think you'll be very happy when you see the results of that, or we'll hope to have great results as a result of these campaigns. So thanks to staff for that. Also, I just want to mention in the CEO report, Rick Leary mentioned the mega clinic that the TTC helped with last, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago at Scotiabank. And I just want to put a little plug in for Thorncliffe Park, because prior to that record being broken, the record was in Thorncliffe Park, where we vaccinated 10,000 people a couple of months ago in one day. That was a federal, a national record. But I want to just mention that Councillor Min Wong and I were at a meeting with the community last week, and they did acknowledge, as did I, the work of the TTC, not just in helping get people vaccinated, but also getting tested. And there was lots of photos in the slideshow that we saw from TNO that featured the TTC staff and the TTC vehicles, because they were right there in the heart of Flemington and Thorncliffe Park, helping Commissioner Min Wong and my residents get tested, live safely, and also get vaccinations. So I just want to do a big shout out to the TTC staff, the whole TTC team, for thanking you for your part in COVID, because there is breaking news this morning that Ontario is reporting 0 deaths today due to COVID-19 for the very first time since October 2020. So it gives me a chill down my back. October 14th, 2020 was the last day that we had 0 deaths. And that is amazing news. And only 194 cases in Ontario today, but 0 deaths. And that's the most important thing. So I think it's really amazing that our TTC played a role in all of this, stepped up when they needed to most in the darkest days of Toronto's history. And TTC played a vital role in all of this. So thank you to the entire team for not, hiding in the background, but instead stepping in and helping us get through this, hopefully forever. So my thanks to Rick Leary, the whole management team, and the crew, everybody who played a role in this, frontline staff who just kept moving forward. On that note, I will wrap up, and I will request a motion to receive the CEO's report and verbal presentation. Commissioner Lalonde, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. That was a great feedback on that item. Item 2 is approved minutes of the Advisory Committee on Accessible Transit, Acad General Monthly Meeting. So this is the one for May 28th. And I would ask Igor to come online, if he isn't already, to present the Acad minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair Robinson and Vice Chair De Laurentiis. Good morning, Commissioners. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge the CEO's remarks and his team on the work with the 7-meter ProMaster. As the CEO has mentioned, Acad has been very involved with this project and working closely with staff, which has led to substantial changes to ensure this vehicle is as accessible as possible. So I just want to thank all staff and Acad members for their work on this. My first item is Acad Recruitment, which will begin in a few weeks as we prepare for our yearly campaign looking for new members. Applications will be accepted from September 7th to September 21st, 2021, with a robust communication campaign to increase the diversity of our committee and the number of applicants who apply. We welcome the support from all commissioners in this endeavor. We hope where possible you can aid in amplifying this information, which will be solidified shortly, and I'm sure shared with the entire board. My second item is about the Easier Access program. I would just like to commend staff and the CEO again on their commitment to providing an accessible path of travel at every subway station in the TTC by 2025. As commissioners are aware, with the board's approval, the TTC is preparing to award 3 contracts as part of the Easier Access program at today's meeting, as well as requesting certain delegated authorities that will see the remaining Easier Access projects expedited, ensuring that the remaining stations are completed as soon as possible. Acad is actively involved in providing feedback on the Easier Access program through our design review subcommittee, and we're extremely supportive of any efforts by staff and the board that see even more traction on this issue, such as those presented today. My third item is Wheel-Trans and Cyclist safety campaign that Acad and the TTC are developing. I just want to express concerns that have been identified by members of Acad and their experiences interacting with the bike lanes in our city. Too often those that use Wheel-Trans and our operators are put in unsafe positions due to their interaction with cyclists when unloading or picking up customers in bike lanes. We hope to work with the cycling community to raise awareness of these issues and work towards safer streets for all users, including cyclists and Wheel-Trans users. More information on this campaign will be coming in the weeks ahead, as well as opportunities for commissioners to help promote and spread this important message. The fourth item that the CEO also touched upon is the TTC's 100th anniversary. Acad is thrilled to be a part of several initiatives that will highlight accessibility within the TTC and the advancements that have been made over the last decades. And just quickly, other items that Acad has been working on, including feedback on Presto updates to the Presto card readers and fare gates. There have been some concerns with family of service implementation as it relates to the blind community. A deputation regarding this item has previously come to the board. A meeting has been set up this week between the TTC and the Alliance for Equality for Blind Canadians to listen, express concerns, and answer any questions that folks may have. I want to thank staff for engaging in these conversations, which have proven very positive, productive, and meaningful for community members and the TTC. Thank you all for your time. Hope everyone is enjoying their summer, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Is there any questions for Igor? I've got one, Igor. Thank you for that great presentation, by the way. Every time you speak, I think almost every time you report out, you do talk about these tension points with cyclists from various perspectives. No, but it's important because you need a voice in this, right? So I guess what you mentioned the commissioners could maybe help. How can we, can you think of a way we can help with that? Because you have mentioned it as many times before. And, you know, it's important I have mentioned it at City Council on your behalf, at least once or twice. But what can we do to help you on that front? Because it's a concern.
Thank you, Chair Robinson, for that question. I think there are many opportunities. I think this sort of issue or tension point with regards to cyclists and Wheel-Trans users, I think is something that affects both parties sort of equally, as well as operators. So I think it's an educational type of campaign that the TTC is actually proactively working on at the moment, and it'll be rolled out in the next couple of weeks through a social media strategy. And if there's any sort of marketing and promotional materials related to that, which I'm sure there will be because of the social media strategy, I'm sure we can share that with the board and commissioners and councillors who might be able to retweet it or repost it or comment on it. Because at the end of the day, Wheel-Trans vehicles need to unload in certain situations within the bike lane, and obviously that creates tension with cyclists who are using the cycling lane. So we just want there to be a safe path of travel for both Wheel-Trans users as well as operators who are assisting customers and also cyclists. So there'll be some messaging around that, and if any opportunity there is to amplify that message from your side or from other councillors would be great, just to get the word out so that we can all work together on this and hopefully sort of reduce the conflict that has occurred in the past with cyclists and Wheel-Trans customers and operators.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will commit to doing that. So that's a great idea. Thanks, Igor. I don't think we have any other questions. So I would ask then that request a motion to receive the Acad minutes. And that's Commissioner Osborne is doing that. Okay, all those in favor? That's approved. Again, thank you, Igor. Okay, we're going to move on to item 3. We have a deputation on this item. It's making Summerhill, Rosedale, and Castle Frank stations accessible contract awards and seeking delegated authority to award future Easier Access 3 contracts. Adam Cahoon is our only deputant, and if Chrisanne could get him connected.
I should be connected.
Great. Go ahead, Adam.
The only thing I want to say about the easier access application is to make sure that you are future proof. I know right now budget constraints are keeping you from doing platform edge barriers and the second elevator at a lot of these stations. But when I was on Acad, the worst words I could hear them say was, "Oh, we can't make that change because we don't have the real estate, we don't have the space, we don't." And what I'm saying is, let's make sure that when we're doing some of these real estate transactions, that we are future proofing, looking into the future. What is going to be wanted down the road? Our second elevator is going to be wanted as more individuals with wheelchairs use the conventional system. As baby strollers and grocery buggies are becoming more the norm. And I've been listening to the discussion the whole morning. If you want to get more people down on the TTC and subway, you need to make the subway stations more comfortable and less crowded and less claustrophobic. So think about the future when you are doing some of these things to make sure that you're actually not just working on the budget by going in cheap for now. Think what you're going to want 5 to 10 years down the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Any questions? Okay, Adam, thank you for that input. That's helpful. And we're going to move now into committee. And I just wonder if anybody has any questions on this item. Seeing none, any speakers? Okay, if I could have a mover on this item, item 3. Okay, I see Commissioner Carroll's hand up. All those in favor, that carries. Okay, next item is item 6, presentation, Osgood interlocking incident. Last time we did experience this at the last meeting, but it was in camera, and now we have a staff presentation, a public staff presentation. So if we could go ahead with that.
All right, thank you, Chair. I'll start off, Chair Robinson. Commissioners, as you're aware, in June of last year, we had an operational incident near our Osgood station that resulted in 2 trains coming much closer to each other while in revenue service than they should have. And it's what we call we know as a near miss. I want to be clear, although this incident had no impact in service and there were no injuries or damage to our infrastructure, it should never have happened. In a moment, members of the executive team will walk you through this incident in detail, provide you with the subsequent investigation, as well as numerous changes we've already begun implementing. By now, I'm sure everyone has heard me say repeatedly the fact that safety is paramount in everything that we do here at the TTC. It's something that we'll never compromise on, and it's something that we're always working to improve. So board members, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you to those that will be presenting today, because we're going to start off with our Chief Operating Officer, Jim Ross, who's going to walk you through the incident as it occurred. Next will be Betty Surgeon, the Acting Chief of Safety, and she's going to describe the safety incident review as well as the investigation process. After that, Kirsten Watson, our Deputy CEO, will walk you through the corrective action plan. And finally, Gary Downey, the Chief Capital Officer, will walk through our modernization efforts. So with that, Jim, I'm going to pass it over to you to kick off. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. So what we're looking at here is how the system is displayed on the boards in the control center and what the transit control staff would have seen as the incident unfolded. For orientation purposes, to the left is north, to the right is south, and we're focusing on the section of track between Osgood and St. Andrew stations. St. Andrew Station is seen as yellow and green rectangles on the right, and Osgood is seen as red and green rectangles in the center of the display. 114 run, displayed here by a white rectangle at St. Andrew Station northbound, has advised that they have an emergency alarm activated on their train and that they're investigating. In addition to contacting emergency services and dispatching TTC staff to attend, the control center also begins to take steps to maintain service while 114 is holding. This includes the decision to have 123 run displayed as a yellow rectangle at Osgood to offload their customers at Osgood Station and operate into the pocket track to be able to come northbound in place of 123 should the incident be prolonged. This is typical action during subway delays and is by no means extraordinary. Prior to COVID-19, we averaged 60 emergency alarms per week, and even since COVID-19, we continue to average 39 of these incidents per week. It is, however, less typical that Osgood Pocket Track is used for this type of adjustment, but given the location of the emergency alarm only one station away, it was chosen as it provided the best possible service adjustment. The instructions from the control center to the motor person on 123 run are to offload at Osgood, proceed into the pocket track, and to leave when they receive a favorable signal. As these recordings are unedited, you will also hear conversations with other trains, including 126 run at St. George Station. We'll play that recording.
26 at St. George, 26. Control calling the train southbound at St. George. 26, go ahead. Yeah, I need you to offload there, please. You'll get routed over to the northbound. Just clear the 16 and come back north. Do not go to Museum. Just clear the switches and come back north. Control for 120, manual, Osgood Pocket. 23, if you can offload there, manual in and out of Osgood Pocket, yes please. And 20, on your favorables, 23. What? No, it's just already offloads going into the pocket. Yeah, you can go in there manual and proceed on your favorables northbound on in manual. So manual back onto the platform at yeah, once you get your favorable on the X8.
Next slide, please, Sam. In this image, we see that 123 run is operating into the pocket track, and the system shows occupancy on the track in pink, while unoccupied track is shown as white. As the operator at the south end of the train enters the pocket track, he will stop approximately 5 meters short of the stopping point sign. There is nothing on the control center board that indicates this error. Next slide. At this point, the crew from 114 run has been able to address the emergency alarm and have advised the control center that they are able to proceed. They are given authorization to proceed, and this is indicated by the track and signal display turning green in front of 114 run. The control center believes the crew on 123 run are continuing to hold in the pocket track until they receive a signal to depart, as was instructed. Play that recording.
On the X8. Control, this is 14. They got him off the train. We are good to go. Roger, go to proceed when you get your routing.
Next slide.
26 at St. George.
The motor person on 123 run did not, however, hold their position and instead proceeded out of the pocket track, even though the signal was still red. While the track diagram here doesn't show distance, the train did travel approximately 38 meters and stopped within 1 meter of the passing northbound 114 run. There was no call to the control center from any crew members on either train, and the crew on 123 run then moved the train back into the pocket track without authorization from the control center. Next slide. It is at this point that the control center staff see that 123 run appears to have moved out of the pocket track, and they attempt to contact the motor person.
123 in the Osgood pocket, you haven't moved, right? (123) Osgood pocket. Guard or operator in the Osgood pocket. This 23, can you hear me? Yeah, you guys didn't move, right? (23) Osgood pocket, did you guys move? 23 here, can you hear me? Dr. Rogers, can you hear me? All operators be advised, SIOs coming from tail track number 2 at VMC. Patrol calling the train in the Osgood pocket. Just 23 in the pocket, go ahead. Yeah, did you guys move? Got our operator, Osgood pocket. This is the operator. Yes, we did start to move, but there was a train coming next to us, so I had to stop immediately. Yeah, you're advised to proceed on a favorable. Oh, you know what? It's because the light was next to me, but I saw the switch move, and I couldn't actually see the light. I don't think we were far enough back. Roger. Just stop and stay there.
So at no time was the control center advised of how far the train had moved and how close they were to the passing northbound train. The motor person did speculate that the southbound operator hadn't moved far enough south for him to be able to see the red signal, which we now know from the investigation to be accurate. The crew was told to stop and stay, and a chief supervisor was dispatched to investigate further and interview both crew members. The motor person told the chief supervisor that he had not seen the signal, but seeing the train stop go down and the switch move, believed he was authorized to move. That train stop was actually decommissioned as part of ATC's Phase 3A and was tied down in the cleared position, so it did not move. During the interviews with both crew members at the scene, at no time did either of them advise the supervisor that the incident was a near miss, and the motor person actually said, as quoted from the chief supervisor's report, that, quote, only after he moved off and observed the red aspect in the operator's side window, end quote, did he stop the train. That would mean that the train traveled approximately 2 to 3 meters. Based on the operator's statements, the chief supervisor then assessed the situation as an unauthorized train movement of approximately 2 to 3 meters and not the near miss that we know actually occurred. That statement was reiterated in the operator's signed report that was submitted later that night, in which he wrote, quote, I moved forward with my partner on the phone and he said there's a train coming. And at that same time, I saw the red light and realized it was just in my blind spot. So I stopped the train and explained what happened to transit control, end quote. The chief supervisor directed that the operator's partner would operate the train directly back to Wilson Yard, and that the operator was to be interviewed by his division manager before being authorized to operate again. All reports were then forwarded to our safety department for their follow-up, and the chief supervisor requested that the forward-facing video from the train was to be downloaded and made available to the safety department for further investigation. And at this point, I will turn it over to our acting chief safety officer, Betty Surgeon. Betty?
Thanks, Jim. As stated by Jim earlier, the incident was initially reported by Transit Control as an unauthorized train move. And based on the information provided by the crew to the attending chief supervisor, the potential severity of the incident was minimized. The train crew was not forthcoming with the distance the train traveled out of the pocket track when interviewed at the scene by the investigating chief supervisor. The statement given by the operator of Run 123 indicated that the train only traveled a few feet and that the operator stopped the train after viewing a red signal through their side cab window, and that they did not see any signal before proceeding out of the pocket track. Based on this initial report, on-call safety staff didn't receive a call from Transit Control, as an unauthorized train move wouldn't trigger notification to safety. However, the investigating chief supervisor's report was emailed to the safety team. The safety team received the copy of the video download on June 13th. The severity of the incident was realized upon review of the video footage, and this triggered the safety notification process, including subsequent review and investigation. Before I take you through the safety review and investigation process, I will first show you the video footage from the front of Run 123 as it was exiting the Osgood pocket track towards the northbound track. You will see Run 123 head towards the main line at approximately 7 kilometers an hour, while Run 114 operating in automatic train operation mode, traveling at approximately 43 kilometers an hour, is approaching. You will then see the operator of Run 123 apply the emergency brakes as Run 114 passes by on the main line. If we can please play the video. As part of safety's notification process, we issue safety incident snapshots after attending and are being notified of an incident by Transit Control Center. The snapshot provides a synopsis of the incident, including details of the incident, immediate actions taken, and a description of next steps. As a minimum, the snapshot is issued to the affected chief officer and department head, and for the more serious incidents, it is issued to the entire executive team, including the CEO, as was the case for this incident. On June 13th, just after noon, a major safety incident snapshot was issued, including screenshots of the incident from the forward-facing camera on the train. Following this, a more detailed investigation was conducted, which included a site visit at the Osgood pocket track on June 15th to examine the area and to take photographs and measurements, request of documentation from Transit Control, ATC, Subway Transportation and Infrastructure and Engineering regarding the incident, review and analysis of the CSS playback, which is the display board in Transit Control, to determine the sequence of events, review of voice recordings between Transit Control Center and the crews from both trains, analysis of the diagrams of the forward-facing camera field of view, as well as the dimensions of TR trains. A 7-day safety investigation report was issued and a presentation was made at a safety executive meeting to review the findings and initial actions taken. We have 3 levels of investigation, level 1, 2, and 3. The actual level of investigation conducted will depend on the actual or potential severity of the incident, with level 3 investigations reserved for our more serious incidents. A number of special safety executive meetings were held with the CEO and the executive team to discuss the findings of the investigation, and the decision was made at the CEO's direction to bring in a third-party consultant to conduct the level 3 investigation. I will now present the findings from the investigation. The immediate cause that led to this incident was the failure of the operator of Run 123 to adhere to instructions given by Transit Control to move the train out of the Osgood pocket track once the X8 displays a favorable signal. The operator incorrectly uses their observation of the movement of the switch and seeing X8 trip arm in the down position as having the authority to move the train out of the pocket track. I will now take you through the contributing factors. The first contributing factor identified was the visual obstruction of X8 signal. The southbound operator operates the train into the Osgood pocket and stops approximately 5 meters or 15 feet short of the turnback switch clear stop marker. This contributes to the visual obstruction of the X8 signal for the northbound operator. The northbound operator's vision of the X8 signal is obstructed by the corner pillar of the frame of the train. Since the incident, we have reinforced operating instructions with subway personnel, including the importance of proper spotting and confirmation of line of sight with the signal at the operator's end. The second factor was failure to follow radio communication protocol. Transit Control gives a single operating instruction to Run 123 operators to move into and out of the Osgood pocket track instead of giving 2 separate instructions for each individual move. Also, the operator did not repeat the instructions back to Transit Control to ensure receipt and comprehension of instructions. This has been addressed with updates to terminology in the radio communication system procedure, as well as reinforcing training to all tower controllers of Transit Control and operators. This process is now part of the rules compliance program and audited regularly. The third factor was insufficient familiarity and understanding of manual operation in ATC territory, including which trip arms are permanently out of service. The northbound operator believed the trip arm at the boundary of Osgood Interlocking had moved to the clear position. However, the trip was tied down and out of service. Although training has been provided to operators on the ATC system as we transition from legacy to ATC, we're reinforcing this training. The recertification program was reviewed and updated, including a 1-hour training session, which is being delivered to address some of the challenges, confusion, misunderstanding between legacy and ATC modes of operation. The fourth factor was inadequate flank protection involving mixed mode vehicles. That's where you have ATC trains and non-ATC equipped work cars during mainline operation at the Osgood Interlocking. Flank protection is a measure to prevent vehicles on converging tracks from running into a route which is cleared for train movement, and it effectively removes the chance of a side impact collision. After further investigation, this issue of inadequate flank protection was identified at other pocket and center track locations. To address this, operating improvements were implemented to manage vehicle movements where there could be a mix of ATC and non-ATC equipped vehicles at these pocket and center tracks. If non-ATC equipped work car movement is required within these locations, it is overseen by on-site supervisory personnel positioned at adjacent platforms. In addition, Transit Control locks all switches and applies a block to the specified locations when non-ATP work cars are in ATC territory. Following this, increased flanking protection at all pocket and center tracks was completed with Phase 3C ATC implementation in November 2020, with further enhancements to flanking protection being implemented in future phases of ATC implementation. The fifth factor was movement of Run 123 northbound out of Osgood Pocket without ATC system protection as the Gamma feature was removed. Gamma is Geographic Automatic Mode Authority, which is essentially movement authority for the ATC system. Through a hazard analysis, which was done as part of ATC Phase 3B implementation, it was identified that an ATC train could be routed into Osgood Pocket already occupied by a non-communicating work car, which could result in a collision. To mitigate this hazard, the Gamma feature was removed at Osgood Pocket. This forced movements in and out of Osgood Pocket in manual mode of operation. Within 3 days of the incident, on June 15th, the Gamma feature was restored. This eliminated the need for trains to operate in manual operating mode when exiting the pocket track at Osgood. Also, work cars were no longer permitted to utilize the Osgood pocket track for docking or turning purposes. I will now turn it over to Kirsten Watson, our Deputy CEO, who will present the corrective action plan in response to the findings and recommendations from the investigation.
Thank you, Betty. As a result of the internal investigation by the Safety Department and the review by the external consultant, we developed a corrective action plan. There are 32 corrective actions. Of those, 23 are complete, 9 are in progress with planned completion this month and next, and 2 will be completed through phase 4 and 5 of the installation of ATC. There are 4 categories of actions: communication, training and awareness, rules and procedures, and system changes. Betty has provided an overview of the actions taken to address the contributing factors. I will review each finding and recommendation of the consultant's review and what the TTC has done and will do to address the recommendations. The first finding is manual mode is highly dependent on compliance by the operator. In this instance, there was no verbal authorization to leave the pocket. It is imperative that instructions are received and repeated back as single instructions, not a series of instructions or stacked instructions. The recommendation is the enforcement of the expectations through training. Training material for operators and anyone who is subway certified has been updated and revised to ensure specific understanding of the operating modes in ATC territory, emergency mode in ATC territory. We changed the term man mode or manual mode to emergency mode, which conveys the seriousness of that type of move. Radio protocols have been reinforced to provide single instructions with acknowledgement of instruction, determining safe routing, operating in the pocket, center, and tail tracks, spotting a train properly, and the trainee demonstrates knowledge with scenarios. We've completed training for all transit control staff and will have completed training for 325 of 365 operators by this Friday. The second finding is there is a lack of overrun protection for train 114 at the Interlock. The recommendation is to review the use of trip arms or to reinforce training and rule enforcement. The TTC is not continuing to use trip arms from the legacy system as we move to full ATC, which is a computer-based system. Rather, we are increasing the flanking or protection at crossovers through phase 4 and 5 of ATC. Gary will speak more to that implementation, and he will also speak to best practices in other international systems who have or are implementing ATC. In the immediate term, as Betty described, we have reinstated the gamma at Osgood, which essentially takes it out of manual mode and makes it ATC. As we had removed the gamma to allow non-ATC enabled work cars to use the pocket, we have stopped all work cars from using the pocket. Importantly, there are no locations in the system where we need to remove the gamma. We have retained the consultant to conduct a phase 2 review, which will be a complete hazard review of ATC. The review is ongoing, and we expect a final report in Q1 2022. The third finding is the operator had conflicting sources of information, the in-cab display for ATC and checking the actual signal. There appeared to be confusion by the operator. The recommendation is it is imperative that operators are aware of the difference between manual mode and ATC, and the report recommends additional training. As stated earlier, the training has been revised and updated. Training has been delivered to all transit control staff and the vast majority of operators to reinforce those expectations. The fourth finding is it is a short distance between the signal and the fouling point at the Osgood pocket. The consultant also found that the tower controller believed the gamma, the ATC protection, to be in place. If it was in place, run 123 would have been protected. The recommendation is to investigate site-specific tripping devices or trip arms. The TTC is not continuing to use trip arms from the legacy system as we move to full ATC, and again, we are increasing the flanking or protection at crossovers through phase 4 and 5 of ATC, which Gary will speak to. And again, in the immediate term, we have reinstated the gamma at Osgood, which essentially takes it out of manual mode and makes it ATC, and we have stopped all work cars from using the pocket. A further concern of the consultant was the workload of the tower controllers who are managing multiple incidents. In response to this concern, our head of transit control has conducted a number of town hall meetings and individual reviews with staff at transit control. While we're continuing to review workload, competencies, and training, we have decided to add 1 tower controller position to the team. We may find additional resources are required as we complete our review. The fifth and final finding is the operator seemed to be confused as to whether the trip arm was operational even though it was tied down. And the recommendation is to mark or identify decommissioned trip arms. All decommissioned trip arms at the interlocking areas in existing Line 1 ATC territory have been removed. The remainder will be removed by the end of August, and this will remove any false reliance on them. Going forward, as we install Phase 4 and 5, decommissioned trip arms will be painted bright orange, and they will subsequently be removed. The priority for removal will be trip arms at the interlocking areas. Further recommendation was the use of wayside operators to assist in newly commissioned areas, and the TTC continues to review opportunities to better communicate new conditions, including more frequent recertifications, updates to all operating personnel, and ongoing counseling by supervisors, both at control and in the field. In summary, we have resolved the immediate issue at Osgood by reinstating the gamma and prohibiting work cars using the pockets. Further flanking protection will be implemented through Phase 4 and 5. Training has been reviewed, revised, and updated. Training has been delivered to all transit control staff and the vast majority of operators, and they will be complete in the coming weeks. We have conducted early discussions with transit control staff and are reviewing managing workload. At this point, we have decided to add one tower control position. Very importantly, the work continues on our hazard review through work with the consultant. Specifically, a comprehensive hazard review is underway with final report expected in Q1 2022. We will report to the board on our progress on the corrective actions and the results of the Phase 2 review. Next slide, please. As noted in the report, the board directed the Chief Executive Officer to alert the board when an incident meeting the identified thresholds for escalation occurs and subsequently report to the board once a comprehensive review or investigation has been completed. We have implemented an escalation and notification protocol. Specifically, the board will be advised of all incidents that meet the following criteria: any Level 3 investigation, which is our most serious incident, any near miss of revenue trains on the main line, any safety investigation involving a third-party review, and of course, any matter at the discretion of the CEO or Chief Safety Officer. I will now turn it over to Gary Downey, our Chief Capital Officer, who will speak to the improvements to be implemented in Phase 4 and 5 and our review of international best practices on ATC implementation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes walking you through the ATC rollout and some of the work we are doing to further address the issues arising from this incident. I will also provide an overview and the steps we are taking to ensure we are taking our internal lessons learned and learning through our international peer reviews to ensure we are implementing our ATC systems in line with industry best practice. With respect to the findings of the consultant report on the Osgood incident, we have two further rollouts of improvements on future phases of the Line 1 ATC implementation. In Phase 4 in November 2021 and Phase 5 in September 2022 of the ATC deployment, we are making software upgrades to further enhance our flanking protection at crossovers, pocket tracks, and centre tracks. These enhancements through various scenarios, simply put, would force the approaching mainline train to brake or apply the emergency brake if needed. When it comes to the installation of our ATC system, we continue to review and undertake risk analysis on the ongoing implementation, and as mentioned previously by Kirsten, we have contracted our external consultant to assist with safety analysis with respect to both systems and operational risks. This report will be provided in Q1 2022. As well as to support the ongoing Line 1 ATC rollout and the development of the Line 2 ATC deployment, we will be undertaking an internal lessons learned review from the Line 1 installation. We will be looking at such areas as governance, contract development, contract management, and project deployment. Next slide, please. Following on from our internal lessons learned, we have further reached out to APTA and the International Association of Public Transport, UITP, to undertake a peer review of our plans to implement the ATC system, ATC using the computer-based train technology, known as CBTC. UTIP review was conducted in March and the ACTA review is planned for July 30th. UTIP assembled a panel of sector peers with expertise in the CBTE system planning, implementation and operations, as well as cyber and information security. The objective of the peer review was to learn from their experience and their lessons learned. The UTIP panel consisted of subject matter experts from Copenhagen, Barcelona, Milan, and Singapore. The UTIP review confirmed that the TTC's ATC implementation using the CBTC technology is in line with industry best practice. The ACTA review later this month will be held with agencies from the following: New York, Boston, San Francisco, Washington, and Denver. Next slide, please. To put our system into context, there are more than 200 subway lines currently operating or under construction worldwide with CBTC. We know there are many benefits with respect to higher capacity, reliability, and punctuality, but one of the overriding benefits of the CBTC system is to improve safety by addressing and virtually eliminating human error, which, as we know, was a key factor in the Osgood incident. This concludes my commentary, and I will turn it back over to our CEO.
There you go. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for that presentation. I'd just like to wrap up by reminding everyone that the TTC, again, treats safety as our #1 priority and that this system is safe. Every day, thousands of buses and streetcars and subway trains traverse the roads and tracks and tunnels of this city without incident. But of course, we don't take safety for granted, and that is why this incident is being treated so seriously. Although this was a case of human error, I am committed to making changes to improve our processes and modernize our systems with things like automatic train control. So with that, Chair, that concludes our presentation, and we'll take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that detailed presentation. I want to now move to questions. So far, I have on the list Commissioner Carroll. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wonder if I could go back to that slide that shows the progression of the investigation process, the arrow and timeline. Can we do that during questions, or is it not possible to go back to the screen? There we are. So this whole process, I'm wondering, in what time period does the timeline on this chart, how long does it take for those steps to be carried out?
Through the chair. So it would depend on the incident. As I mentioned in my remarks, as soon as we're notified of the incident, we start that initial fact-finding exercise, and we issue a safety incident snapshot. So that happens within 24 hours. And then subsequent to that, there's the 7-day investigation report, as I mentioned, and we would have obviously follow-up meetings with our executive team to brief them on that, and we would take it to a safety executive meeting as well, and we hold special executive meetings in addition to our monthly ones. So it would depend, but the part that would stay consistent would be the snapshot would be issued within 24 hours, and there's that 7-day report that we typically issue as well as part of an investigation. But whether it's a level 1, 2, and 3 following that, it might take months, especially with a level 3 that's more intensive. We might need to bring in external expertise, as we had to do in this case. So that's why it would take longer time to complete the investigation.
So that second dot, just the second dot, is the 7 days. It's at the end of the 7 days that you classify it level 1, 2, or 3?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's that next step, that level 1, 2, or 3. I'm aware that the commission moved motions in the in-camera session, which unfortunately I was unable to attend last month. I was in the endodontist chair, even as you were moving those motions. But the level 1, 2, 3 piece, I'm wondering if the motions that talk about when the board should be notified, is that where it fits? That process, we're classifying it now, and now we know when that it needs to be brought to the attention of governance, or does that happen earlier under the new process?
I think it would depend on the incident, but as soon as we would determine that it was of very serious nature, we would notify the board. I don't think we would need to wait for a 7-day report to do that. We would notify as soon as we felt that it was, serious enough and it met the thresholds for escalation, we would notify the board immediately.
Okay, so all the motions that were moved last month that are public, you can look them up on the website. They really give effect to that now. From now on, the board's going to be notified much earlier in the process.
Through the chair, that is correct. Yes. That process
Okay.
would be expedited, so the board would be, as part of our new process, be identified, would be notified much sooner.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to people who might be concerned about this. They may not have seen the motions that were moved as a result of the report. That's my only question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And we're moving back here. I'm just seeing if there's anybody else who has questions. I don't think there is. Again, as we're aware that this was dealt with in private in camera last session. And now we can move to speakers. Is there any speakers on this item? I see Commissioner Carroll, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. I know that probably the rest of the commission did this last month, and I'm grateful for the motions. It sounds like the discussion that I missed is the discussion I would have wanted to have. But I just wanted to underscore for the public that's a key piece for me. When there is an incident of this type, I don't want to ever be in the situation again that I'm hearing about it from the public first. And the motions that the commission have moved, I think, make sure that that's no longer the case. I don't even want to hear about it from an employee first. I really want to hear about it from management before anyone needs to tell me about it. And I think in a busy system like this, it's important to remember that an incident like this, while it might have been unknown to the general public when it was happening, there's no question nowadays that it's going to become known. And so if there are health and safety things that we need to follow up on, an investigation that we need to know, certainly if we're reaching out to an external body and asking them to investigate, there is no question that your governance arm should already know that you've made the decision that it needs to be looked at by an external body before you're picking up the phone to call the external body, be it after UITP. I also want to say that one of the things we're going to need to do in reconnecting, if these are the bodies that we go to and we rely on, we need to interact with them more and know more about them. And that's been difficult during the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, we used budget constraint to not really interact with APTA as Board of Governance members as much as was done in the past. I know I asked to go to an AGM because I really like the look of the things that were going to be discussed, and the answer was no. And I know that's budget constraint, but if these are the bodies that we're relying on, I want to understand that organization. Because, associations sometimes are all that, and sometimes they can become somewhat superficial and mired in the wrong areas of focusing on a system. So I want to know more about it. It's been a little easier to do that because so much has happened virtually. But as they go back to in-person meetings, I really think as a Board of Governors, if these are our go-tos, we should be asking why they're not our go-tos as well as staff's go-tos, and why we aren't getting to know them better. Because they appear to be people we will go to when we have reputational risk. And I'm not even 100% sure of their reputation because they're not really being allowed to interact. And so I think that's something that as a board of directors, we should look at in the near future. Thank you. Those are my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. You know, I'll just quickly, I think, is there anybody else who wants to speak? I don't want to take that. So there was a very hearty, detailed, exhaustive discussion about this last month in camera. Lots of questions and lots of comments. So I'll just share that with the public. But you know, this clearly was very unfortunate, this incident. And, you know, it's been established it was human error and the operating crew moving forward without authorization. And so I think we all look forward to, I've been pushing for many years for the ATC to be rolled out. It seems to be on track. And this will help prevent these types of incidences from reoccurring. Well, we want the ATC rolled out for many reasons. It should have been done decades ago, but it's been happening slowly. And during this term, we've been making way for that by using the opportunities that COVID has presented to get asbestos removed from the system. So that's expediting ATC and first time ever. And even the pocket tracks will be included in ATC as it's rolled out now heading north on Yonge. So lots of closures this year and next to accommodate the ATC. Lots of shuttles on Yonge, but it is happening and happening quickly. And this is one of the major benefits is this type of incident won't be happening once we have that fully rolled out. So thank you for that presentation. Again, it was very comprehensive. A lot of work went into pulling that information together for the board. So thank you to staff for your extensive work on that. And on that note, I'm not sure if we need a motion or what do we need on this? We need, because we've kind of, I guess we'll just request a motion to receive the presentation. I'll do that. All those in favor? Carried, and so the presentation has been received. We're going to now move on to item 7, which is Embracing Diversity, the new TTC Fair Inspector and Special Constable Complaints Office and 2020 Annual Report. And I know I have a question already from Commissioner Lai, so why don't you start with your questions?
Chair, are we having a presentation from staff or not?
We talked about that, and they don't think it's necessary, but if you would like a brief introduction, that's fine. It's up to you.
No, that's fine. I think my questions are pretty straightforward, and it's about, you know, I've read the report and all that, and, you know, it is very nice that you, that the TTC is extending accessibility to people that are complaining, you know, there's complaint process and all that. I just wanted to ask about a question about accessibility. I mean, you've said something there, but what about, I read the report saying that, you know, there's some complaints about, you know, the discreditable conduct or disrespect or whatever, and there's one discrimination. I'm just wondering whether there's any, there's a multi-language piece when you're doing your complaint process. Just give you an example. If I don't speak the language, how do I go about making a complaint?
And through the chair, thanks for that question, Councillor Lai, Commissioner Lai. Great question. So what we've done to really enable accessibility from a language perspective is any customer, someone who has a complaint or someone who has witnessed a complaint, can go onto our site. There is a language tool that allows for over 100 languages to be translated. And that is the information on the website, or if they want to submit their complaint in their preferred language, the option is available through our customer service website as well. So it's fully accessible from a language perspective as well.
Okay, that's very good. I just want to make sure that it has, because it has no mention in the report. So I just want to make sure. Well, I'm happy for the answer. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And Commissioner Carroll is next.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask the questions. We talked about this before the meeting as well, but I want to ask the questions in public so that the community gets the comfort about your independence as a body. The report that's before us today is signed by you. It's not signed by the CEO. This is you coming to the board. So we have the annual report before us. We also have the motion. I moved a motion before that if there's a serious incident and you're having an investigation, that case is going to be numbered and you will update the board on it. Do you have to go through screens to be allowed to bring it to the board agenda, or that's your decision?
So I would say to answer that through the chair, Commissioner Carl, there are sort of two pieces of criteria we look at when bringing information to the board. One, we will inform the board as soon as something has been defined as being of public interest and it's being externally investigated. And we've put parameters around that, right? So really we look at, is there a human rights allegation, et cetera? So that's sort of how and why we make the decision. The independence and the impartiality, because the team reports into the diversity and culture group, I bring that forward based on insights from my team to say this actually is necessary for board action using the criteria that we've defined. So that's informing the board. The second piece is also giving an update when we do our investigation on what the output is. And that is, that will be a second communication to the board that is being defined through our internal process, but the team lies with me, so that is the independence piece. Hopefully that answers your question.
Right. And we have the extra layer. You have the layer that if the complainant's not satisfied with your investigation, it's now a permanent connection. We had an extraordinary step of having the ombudsman look at this, but it's now a permanent step that they're not satisfied with your investigation or its independence. Their very next step is they can take it to the city ombudsman to review your investigation. And
yes,
that's baked in, is it not? That's something that you would tell the complainant.
Yes, and that's a further escalation point for the person who is complaining. So if they're not satisfied with our outcome, they do have the Ombudsman Toronto as a second level really to escalate to. So very, very true.
Right. Thank you for those answers. Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll ask to be on the speakers list as well, and I'll just expand quickly on why I'm asking those questions.
Okay, so is there anybody else who has questions? I don't have any notes on that, so I'm going to move to speakers unless you throw up your hand. And Commissioner Lai, did you want to speak on this? I thought you did. That was my impression. So go ahead. Thank you.
Very quickly, Madam Chair. I just the question I ask is about, it's very good that the report says that you're going to be TTC will be promoting and supporting diversity and inclusion, and with experience like welcoming and fair and free from harassment, discrimination, and violence. I think I just wanted to kind of emphasize on the fact that about a lot of people, as a first generation immigrant myself, sometimes because of, when I first came, I took the TTC. I sometimes take the TTC now, but not as often as when I first come to Canada. And I feel like that, because of language barrier for new Canadians and for maybe international students or visitors, some people they don't, and they feel like they're discriminated upon, if they don't, if they're not being treated properly with a good experience. So I'm very happy to see that Keisha, you are actually focusing on that as well, just to make sure that is putting an equitable lens to people with barriers, and for those people that I just mentioned, and you're opening longer hour, and all those are good changes. And I really was happy that the TTC is committed to giving a very good customer experience to the riders. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, and we'll move now to Commissioner Carroll.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just to explain, my reason for asking the questions is because sometimes it takes a while to set this up. It takes a while for the office to set up, and so I think people have forgotten that this is the change we were headed towards. I noticed that when the agenda became public, across social media, we had people saying, oh, what is this new smoke and mirrors thing? There's no independence. So I think there's been a lag during the setup and the hiring and the getting going. Here's the first annual report. It's quite transparent, but I think people are forgetting that the steps that were taken. Well, this isn't, the province doesn't legislate accountability offices for transit authorities, and so while it doesn't, it's not perfectly in the society of accountability officers as you would have at the municipal and provincial level. Every effort has been made, and that connection is there now that directly ties all of these processes will go through. This transparent reporting will go through incident by incident. We will hear at the governance level about an investigation that it's determined we need to know about right away. But lastly, that connection now to the Ombudsman's office is permanent. That if you're not satisfied at the end of the day, you take this to the Ombudsman, which is, in my view, one of the most independent of the accountability offices for the city, because it's very hard to maintain that independence in the AG's office. Once you have, you've got a team of 30, they go in and they stay a long time in a division, you have to constantly renew. The Ombudsman really does sit well outside the city and then goes in and does that systemic critical eye view. It's a very independent office and backed by a professional association of ombudsmen, et cetera. And so that extra step is now available to us. And so I just asked the questions and allowed Keisha the opportunity to paint that picture again, because I think we've got to make sure that our riders know when they're making complaints, this is quite different than what we had before, and has that follow on to the path to the Ombudsman's office that can be more direct and allow that independent accountability officer view should you need it. But that also that you should always look, if you're looking on our agenda and want to have a critical eye, who signed the report? Who is talking directly to us as governance? Well, this report was signed directly by those officers. They're talking to us. This is not flowing through the whole senior team. It's coming to us. And that's the independence that we as a board asked for. So I hope that the public will take some comfort from that and begin to employ it if they need it, that they'll know that this office was signed up expressly for that purpose in this way that gets as close to full independence as possible and adds an arm to an independent officer. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers on this item? I don't see any, so I'll just thank Keisha and her whole team. Keisha's pretty new to the TTC team, but we're very happy to have her on board. She's proving to be a real asset, and this is a very impressive report before us, a response, a system, whatever you want to call it. It is now formally in place, and it's exciting to have this process unfolding. Again, overdue, but it's here, happening. So it's wonderful work that the team has done at the TTC on this front. And again, thank you to you all. That leads us to, I guess, moving a motion on this then. So if we just get a motion to adopt the recommendations, Commissioner Carroll, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. I think it's our last item, item 8, the contract award for SAP time and attendance project. We all discussed this last month. Again, there was a really impressive presentation from staff on this, but it's before us again to get things moving along. So is there any questions on this item? I don't see any, and I haven't heard of anything from the clerk.
Sorry, I didn't email Madam Speaker. I just have a couple of questions.
Do you have? Okay, go ahead.
I got a briefing on it, so the only thing that I didn't cover in the briefing, and maybe Miss Levita can help me with this, Josie. The thing I didn't ask, I know that we're still working through the 175 odd million. The part we're approving today falls inside that. I have to ask this question because the SAP, I always worry about scope creep. So is it understood that there's going to be a report coming to us at the various levels? And as soon as we go beyond that initial 178, if we're doing the projects that were planned within that 178, but we get beyond that dollar amount, there's going to be a report to us so that we can have a look at it and ask how it can be addressed.
Absolutely. Through the chair, thanks for that question, Commissioner. We'll be monitoring this on a regular basis as we do in each of the individual projects, and we'll continue to provide those updates to the board as you like. But we would not be going above the full value without coming to the board first.
Okay. And one other question, I didn't ask this in the briefing, which was very helpful, but I forgot to ask, within the cost that's before us, we're heading into the time management. This is the one that will be a big change, individual employee to individual employee, because we're heading into time management and attendance management, that sort of thing. Are any impacts of transition over to this program, if there are human resources impacts on our end, have those been costed into the projects? Anything that we have to provide to train everybody up and get to the point where we're going from manual? I can't believe this part of the operation is still manual, but as we go into SAP with this, if there's a cost in our own staff complement, is that costed into the project?
So through the chair, I'll start in case Michael might want to supplement. So in terms of costs, I guess there's two elements to cost. We're making sure that we are funding through the project all those individuals that need to be on the project to ensure that we have the successful delivery. And then the second part of kind of cost or impact is ensuring that we have funding in the project for the communication change management as it requires the extensive rollout through the organization, because this will be a significant impact across the entire of the entirety of the org.
I can imagine this will be the biggest change yet, I think. Okay,
that's true.
I see Michael unmuting. Is there a follow-up comment, or does that cover it?
No, that covers it. Chelsea explained everything that we have included, change management training for the staff, and then each release will learn from it and roll out.
Okay, yeah, I'm satisfied as well. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Speakers on this item? Okay, I'm going to speak. I've got motions, two motions, if you could put them up on the screen and I'll just explain them. So I just thought it was a great opportunity. Losing my battery here a bit, so hopefully you can hear me. So these are my motions about just focusing on, having a summary of all the technology systems in use across the organizations, is kind of the status of the systems and the integration, the data, the insights from each system, and then various systems that are supporting service improvements and providing value. And then my second motion, and I'll explain both in a minute, is just the creation of an organizational-wide innovation and sustainability program at the TTC with the mandate to advance planning, delivery, integration, and the reporting out of innovation initiatives while incorporating a climate and resiliency lens. So the first motion basically builds on the work underway to advance our SAP project in alignment with the 5-year corporate plan. And last year I was on the transportation committee, and we did a lot on big data. So it's something I've come to learn about and the value of it. And it's part of our corporate strategy to embrace big data and link customer analytics with the enterprise-wide data, including operational KPIs. So we've invested in Maximo, which is a new customer relationship system, along with Vision, Trapeze, SAP, and many other technology systems. And we've also received important data, as we all know, from the Presto fare card system. So in my discussions with the CEO, I've been advised that a data analytics working group has been established, which is great news, to examine this data and how all the systems are working together. So my motion is just really asking for a report back on this important work to ensure that these systems are integrated and explore how we can continue to build stronger data and analytics processes. My second motion builds on a motion moved by Commissioner McKelvey, asking the TTC to embed resiliency across the organization, and my thanks to her for doing that. Great work. One of the key deliverables in our corporate plan that I am most excited about is the opportunity to foster the culture of innovation and sustainability. And boy,
Members, just one moment. It appears that we've lost the chair.
investment plan, which I think is another legacy piece of this term, that CIP didn't exist before this term, or quite frankly, before our CEO took the helm. And it's above and below the line and never been summarized ever before in one document. So that is something that we're going to continue to focus on and work on. But it's critical that the climate lens is applied to this important work in order to help, you know, our whole city reach its targets, its emissions targets. And we need to really focus on how our infrastructure at the TTC is resilient and that climate mitigation is built into the new and retrofitted infrastructure. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank staff who have worked so hard on this endeavor. We had an incredible, comprehensive presentation at our last board meeting that I think wowed the board. And I want to particularly thank Sean and Michael and Josie for this report and the work that's moving forward. It's very encouraging to see this, the steps you're taking and the time and attendance component of the SAP project. You know, it's long overdue. I said that last month. It's a critically important project, long overdue. But it's going to have significant benefits for us, including substantial cost savings, streamlined business processes, more accurate data, and real-time analytics. So I can't wait until the day where we say we finally decommissioned our mainframe system from the 1970s. My sons always tease me when I use the word mainframe, which is manual and paper-based. So it's going to be a great day when that happens. And I know this is a very complex, incredibly complex process. It is transformative work that will go a long way to modernizing this organization. So this is another great day for the TTC. Great work to everyone involved, and thank you for all your efforts.
You're muted, Chair. You're muted. You're on mute.
I muted myself because I was finished speaking. It's like habitual. But then I forgot I was chairing the meeting. Okay, that's not good. So I thank you, Vice Chair, for that tip. So I'm going to move the motion to adopt the report recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, that carries. Great work to the team. So I believe that brings us to the end of our meeting today. So I'm now asking for a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, Chair.
All move that motion.
Sorry, just
yes,
one moment.
What did I miss?
Did we have the vote on your motion?
Yes, we did. Oh,
okay.
No, we did not. No, you're right. So let's put the motion up.
Thank you.
That would be a good move. All right, thanks, Chris Ann. Let's put the motions up again, the 1 and 2. And we'll vote on those first and then the item. All right. So all those in favor of the motions before us? I can't see you, but I'm hoping your hands are up. Yep, they are. Excellent. Thank you. And so that is that's adopted. And now we need to, I guess we'll just do it again for Chris-Anne's sake, to move to adopt the staff recommendations with the amendments. All those in favor? Approved. I think, Chris-Anne, we can now adjourn formally. Thank you, everyone. Have a great summer. That was a great meeting today. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chair.
team.
Thank you for joining us. The webcast has ended. Thank you for joining us. The webcast has ended.